Hello, this is Dr. Dennis Bielfeldt of the Christ School of Theology. The Christ School of Theology is the graduate school of the Institute of Lutheran Theology, and you're watching a lecture in a course called Faith, Knowledge, and Reason. And this course called Faith, Knowledge, and Reason deals with the philosophical tradition, and particularly the philosophical tradition insofar as it impacts theological thinking. We're dealing today with a very fundamental thinker for anyone doing theology in the last 200 years, and this is Immanuel Kant. Kant lived from 1724 to 1804, and he wrote a series of texts that have become probably the most read and the most influential texts in the Western philosophical tradition since the time of Aristotle. The one we're talking about mostly today will be the Kritik der reinen Vernunft, which is the critique of pure reason. Then we'll talk a bit about the critique of practical reason. We'll talk just a little bit about the very interesting third critique, the critique of judgment. So last time we began, we were into the very beginnings of the critique of pure reason, and we distinguished between propositions that were ampliative and propositions that were analytical. And if you remember right, Kant puts this in terms of the subject being included, or the predicate being included within the subject. And this goes back to Leibniz that we had previous lectures about, his predicate and notion theory. And of course, for Leibniz, the predicate is always within the notion, right? In any true judgment, the predicate must be included within the notion. So he doesn't make this sharp distinction that Kant wants to make between an analytic and synthetic judgment. Here's a picture of a synthetic judgment. Here's the subject. There's the predicate. To say that a body is heavy, we'll use Kant's very famous example. All bodies are heavy. This is a synthetic judgment because the concept of being heavy is not included within the concept of being a body. However, all bodies are extended. There we go. The concept of being extended for Kant is included within the concept of being a body. So you might be thinking about our good friend Descartes here, who, of course, held that the essence of matter is extension, right? So Kant's dealing certainly with his theological predecessors. He's dealing a lot with Leibniz in this text. He's certainly talking about Descartes, much of the text, particularly his critique of rational psychology, and then his real interesting dialogue partner through much of this text is David Hume, who Kant said awoken him from his dogmatic slumbers sometime in the late 1760s, maybe early 1770s. Trying to remember exactly how that was. And then, of course, he talks about Berkeley as well, the celebrated Locke. So he's dealing with the British tradition as well. So anyway, this is an ampliative judgment where the predicate adds something to the subject. This is an analytical judgment where the predicate unpacks the subject. Now, the analytical synthetic distinction is a semantic distinction, right? It is a distinction in meaning. The meaning of the predicate is not included within the meaning of the concept, the begriff, in a synthetic judgment. It is so included within an analytical judgment. So this is synthetic, or a semantic distinction. But how we know this, right, how we know these things, this brings us into the epistemic. And we can know things either in two ways, according to Kant. You can know them a posteriori. This means after experience, right? You can know a thing after experience, so you have to experience it before you know it. Or you can know a thing a priori. A priori judgment is a judgment made prior to experience. I know that a bachelor is an unmarried male prior to any experience. I don't go out and I canvass the neighborhood asking every bachelor whether he's an unmarried male. That would be a very shall we say, that would not be a very wise use of my time. I know a priori that a bachelor is an unmarried male. But are bachelors happy? Now, some of you may think this is an analytical judgment. But it's not really an analytical judgment, right? It's a synthetic judgment. You got to go out and ask them. Are you a happy bachelor? Well, yes, I am. Well, give me the criteria by which to adjudicate whether you're happy or not, and then I'll look at you confused. And that's, of course, the problem with that. But we, skip over problems like that. So, an a priori judgment is made in advance of empirical experience, and a posteriori judgment is made on the basis of empirical experience. So this gives us now, classically, the four options, which I think threw out on the table last time. So you have a chance with a priori and a posteriori. There's your epistemic, right, on this side. It's running down. The analytic, or on this side, you have the semantic, and that runs across. We have the analytic and the synthetic. Now, an a posteriori synthetic judgment seems like that's empirical experience, right? That's easy. You go out and you find out what predicates attach to what subjects based upon experience. That's an a posteriori synthetic judgment, or synthetic a posteriori judgment. Then an analytic a priori judgment. Well, that's very easy. We have such judgments in the realm of conceptual truths of all kinds, don't we? So here's our conceptual truths. A body is extended is a conceptual truth. That's an analytic a priori judgment. Now, a posteriori analytic judgments, Kant didn't think there were any. Kripke would disagree, and a host of others nowadays, but for a long time, people thought there weren't any such things. What Kant really wanted to investigate in the Critique of Pure Reason is the synthetic a priori judgment. This would be classical metaphysics. Are there truths that actually we can know a priori without consulting experience, but that actually lead to new knowledge, right? Now, on the plane yesterday, I was reading Leibniz's Monadology in the German, which is fun, of course. And clearly, Leibniz believes there's all kinds of things that we know over here. He just unpacks stuff. I was reading a bit of Spinoza's Ethics yesterday. And of course, he does the same thing. I mean, these guys are full of statements that would be classical metaphysical statements of synthetic a priori judgments, right? Descartes, the same. Now, with our good friend Hume, Hume, of course, doesn't believe there's any such thing at all over here. He says if you find in a book such kinds of judgments, consign the book to the flames, right? Because it can't help you. Because the only thing we can know is on the basis of experience. And of course, Hume has certain questions about what we can know on the basis of experience, and it turns out to be not much, right? Natural law comes under extreme scrutiny here. You can read the Critique of Pure Reason as an attempt to answer the question, what is the boundary, what is the criteria by which we sort propositions into the class of proper synthetic a priori judgments and improper synthetic a priori judgments, right? Kant's going to believe that we do know certain metaphysics, synthetic a priori judgments. We can know those things. But many others we cannot know. And most of the tradition, what they thought we could know, Kant says we can't know. Okay? Everybody clear with that? All right. Now, the first thing that happens if you read the Critique of Pure Reason is you certainly find Kant very interested in mathematics. Okay? Kant, in a very early part here of the Critique of Pure Reason, starts to really get into a discussion about the nature of arithmetic and geometry. And he does believe that both of these disciplines are synthetic and a priori. So if there's a class of metaphysical statements that are synthetic and a priori and true, they would be like arithmetic and geometry, right? Now, he says that necessity and universality characterize a priori judgments. They're the merkmale, the marks of a priori judgments. And because, of course, mathematics is both necessary and universal, it must be a priori. But neither arithmetic nor geometry work through conceptual ties. I'm using a little bit newer language here. Conceptual ties or conceptual linkages of meaning. It must, both of them, concern the real expanse of our knowledge. So, Kant is not a formalist in mathematics. Kant believes that mathematics is a domain in which one knows new things, one discovers new things. It's filled with synthetic judgments. Now take, for instance, 7 plus 5 is equal to 12. This is very important. Kant talks about this. He says, well, no amount of reflection on 12 will bring one to 7 plus 5, you see. And he has this thing where you have to actually consult the digits of your fingers, right? 12 does not just mean 7 plus 5. When I say that 7 plus 5 is equal to 12, 7 plus 5 has a different meaning than 12. And so it is a synthetic judgment. Now, we today, and Hume then, thought this wrong. Hume thought that 7 plus 5 is equal to 12 is a relation of ideas, and that, if you will, the notion of 7 plus 5 is included within 12, and the notion of 12 is included within the notion of 7 plus 5, right? So he would have regarded it, if you use this language, as an analytic truth, right? But not so for Kant. Kant believes that 7 plus 5 is a different meaning than 12. And so, for arithmetic, so for geometry, he holds that straight line does not just mean shortest distance between 2 points. We have to consult geometric space in order to know that a straight line is the shortest distance between 2 points. So geometry is synthetic as well. So here's the point to take away. Geometry and arithmetic are both synthetic disciplines, and we, however, know that 7 plus 5 is equal to 12 a priori, in the same way that we know many all the geometrical truths we know a priori as well. We don't have to go out in the world and say, oh, here's a circle. Oh, I wonder if the same relationship holds between the diameter of the circle and the circumference. This is Dr. Dennis Bielfeldt of the Christ School of Theology. We'll come back with more of Kant in a moment. We'll see you then. Thank you.